Hello, welcome to Marion's World. And I've got a lovely little video for you of me upcycling a tablecloth very similar to this one into a blouse that I'm wearing. And I've really enjoyed doing it. And I've shown you the process of how I do it. You don't need a pattern. It didn't even take very long. It just took a couple of hours to turn something like this into something like this. And this one's actually got long sleeves, which that surprised me because I didn't realise the tablecloth was going to be big enough to do that. I hope you enjoy it, and you'll find out why this one didn't make the cut for the blouse. So the first thing I need to do is just assess the tablecloth. I have actually got two here to start with, and I'm going to be recreating this style of blouse which I made on the diagonal by just cutting a hole in the top and fitting it to myself. But I'm going to show you just exactly how I made that. So I've got two. This is the one that I actually wanted to use. It's got a lovely pattern. However, when I held it up to me, that was sort of an unfortunate arrangement, as the two purple little blossoms headed straight towards my bust, and so I definitely can't use that one. So that'll have to be cut up for something else because that is really badly marked, but it won't be for a blouse. So that's out of the way. This one is also quite marked, but it's got more potential, and the best thing about it really is that it has the embroidery quite tightly round the middle, which means that when I fold it, the embroidery itself is going to hang down the front of my body rather than be just at the corners where it would be hidden underneath. So first things first, it just needs you to be brave in a way, because you just have to go and cut a hole. So I'm going to fold this into the diagonal, because cutting them up is sort of the last thing that I do with them in a way. Somebody's worked them so beautifully. And the first time I ever cut one up, I stood with the scissors for ages, and then once I'd cut it, there's no going back. So I'd say the same, once you've cut, there's no going back. So I've now got this quartered because it's going to be hanging on the diagonal. Now originally I just cut a small hole and I kept cutting it until it was big enough. This actually has this crocheted piece around, so I'm going to go and cut it around that area there, just here in front, because I know from my original one that I did, which is here, if I match that up there, I know that that's about the lowest I need it to go at the front, but usually I like a higher back neck. So instead of cutting it away a bit at a time, I'm going to cut the front along the hem of here, because I'm going to try not to take the front down lower than this bit of crochet. So if you're doing it for yourself, when I originally did it, I cut a small hole and tried it, and I kept cutting the hole until I could see that I could get it over my head, and then I went and refined the shape. But because I already know the shape now, I'm going to just do it. So there's nothing left but just to go for it. On this one, I'm going to preserve the hem of the fabric here, because if I cut through the crochet part, I'm going to have to do something else. So I'm going to cut carefully around here. My original one didn't have any of this crochet on, so I actually just roughly cut a hole and kept cutting it until I knew that it was the right shape. Once you've got the hole, you can try it on. Now I'm actually going to cut the back. I'm not going to cut the whole circle. It's tempting to cut this circle totally out and keep that for something else, but I'd rather have a higher back neck. So I'm just going to cut the back neck a little bit more shallow in the hopes that I can have a higher back neck, because I'm thinking that I might be able to make this into a long sleeve top that I can wear during the winter and not just a summer top. Always just quarter or half your fabric and you'll get an even shape. because in the end you don't need a pattern for this type of a thing. It is more intuitive. So I'm going to just take that. That's my centre seam there. That's my centre of my fold, like that. So I've cut to the middle of the shoulders, and now I'm going to just cut in from here and make a curve to the shoulder. And hope that that makes a nice neckline shape. So next is try it on. Well, it fits over my neck, and that neckline is just right for me, and I think the back is about the right height. So the neck is actually the last thing that I will deal with. Everything else can be done first. And as you can see, I'm wearing it diagonally, and actually I feel that that's quite a nice placement. So the next thing to do is just find out how much room you need. Actually, what I'm quite liking is, because this is a slightly bigger tablecloth than the one I did before, I like the way that falls over my wrist. It's actually too long, but I'm wondering whether a couple of pin tucks would bring that up and make a nice long-sleeved wintry top that I can wear during the winter. We'll see. The next thing, got a hole for the neck. The next thing is to get the body, and all I'm going to do is, remember, we're now on the bias. There's some stretch across the bust line, which is really helpful. So I'm going to hold the sides together, and I'm just going to put a couple of pins where I think it should be, and then carefully take the top off, and then take my measurements and see how it matches up. If you've got someone to help you, that's great, but I don't, so I just have to do it myself. I'll just get everything halved along the best I can, and then once I've wiggled a bit, I can sort of just hold it together, put a pin in, because you need to be able to get it on and off yourself, so it's important that you make sure you're making enough room. So I've got the cloth off and I've quartered it again, and there's my pin mark. Now, I did easily get it off. You need to be easily able to get it off over your bust, and so that's a consideration, especially when you're curvy like I am. And now it's important to get your measurements down on the cloth. So the first one I've taken is the measurement from the middle of the back of my neck to where I want the sleeve to end. And on my other blouse it was 18 inches, and so I measured from the middle, from my fold, down to where I wanted the sleeve to end, and then I added an inch on for a hem. For this one I'm going to try and preserve this lovely bonny corner and make it into long sleeves, but remember, once you've cut it, you can make it smaller, you can't make it bigger. So I'm going to leave that on and not mark a sleeve. And then the next measurement you need is a quarter of your chest measurement. So we'll measure around here, around your widest part, because remember, there's not much give in these tablecloths. You need ease of movement. And when you've got the measurement, add a couple of inches on for ease, and then add another inch on for your seam allowance. And then if you just quarter that measurement, that is how wide you need it, and just see if that measures up to where your pin is, which I'm going to do now. So here's my measurement, and I'm going to check it with my pin, and I wasn't too far off. So my pin's actually here, and I'm going to give it, and that would be without the seam allowance. So with the seam allowance, I'm going to mark it here. Instead of coming straight down, I'm going to give it a flare, like that. And I'm going to leave this corner piece on. With this bigger tablecloth it might be too long, but it might be just right, so don't cut anything you don't have to cut. And so you should have your length of sleeve marked already, so all that you need now is how much you need for the sleeve. And all you have to do for that is measure around your upper arm. Add on for ease, I'm adding on 2 inches, I'm adding on for seam allowance. I'm going to half my tape measure and I'm going to transfer that to the tablecloth. I always end up adding extra for good measure. I'd rather cut it off than make a mistake. So I'm going to go there like that for my sleeve. And now all I need to do is this is where my underarm is going to be between these two measurements. I'm just going to curve that in like that. And then I'm going to go down the sleeve with a flare and just see. I might not want to flare, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to pin this now. So this is the cutting line, so I'm going to pin in from there because I'm going to do a French seam. So if that's where I'm going to cut, I'm going to pin inwards from there. And I'm going to do that on both sides and try it back on. So pin quite generously and pin both sides away from your armpit. So pin down the body and then down the sleeve. And so now I'll turn the pins round and pin the other way. So this is how the pins look. So I'm pinned down the body here and away from the armpit there. I've actually decided not to have the flare. I think the likelihood is that if I do get long sleeves, they'll be narrowed as they go to the wrist. So I'm going to pin the other side and give it a try on. Also, to transfer the measurement to the other side, all I do is I hold my finger on the pin and I lift up the top layer and then I just pin down into the bottom layer. And I do everything from the right side of the material because I'm going to be making French seams, and so I'm going to sew it from the right side in the first place. That's where one of the bad stains is actually, so that might decide what I do with the sleeves. Well, my initial try on feels fine. Obviously I've got the pinned material here, but I got it on okay. It fits over my bust. It's a bit long where the point is, but actually I'm probably going to keep that on for the moment because if I'm wearing a skirt it'll get tucked in. If I'm wearing trousers it's fine that it's long. So either way that's alright. The sleeves are actually working quite well, but I'm not sure whether they'll hang right because I've just half the tablecloth. So they sort of feel as if they'd need rotating round. So it may be that I take that off and put a cuff on, use it as a cuff. I'm not sure yet. I'm not willing to cut it yet. But I am now willing to cut this. So the next job is cutting the excess material off. But this neckline seems fine. The neckline at the back seems fine. Fitting over here nice. So yeah, cutting. We could wear it like that really, but no, I'm not likely to. I don't want all this under here. But it looks quite good when I do that. Cutting next. I get the tablecloth quartered again. It's always best to just keep it folded in the quarters while you sort it out. Get it as lined up as you can. They're not always perfect squares or oblongs, so you just do your best. And I've already cut a hole in the middle, so just carry on, and I'm going to cut this out. So I'm just going to follow my line, which seemed fine. And obviously these pieces will be preserved for using somewhere else. I've now got my basic blouse. I feel as if I do want to narrow the sleeves down. I'm going to take you to the machine now and we'll do our first bit of sewing. Before I start sewing for today, I just thought I'd give my machine a bit of TLC. I haven't oiled it for ages and I think it was sounding a bit noisy. So I'm just giving it an oil on the points that are marked. There's usually red dots inside where it tells you where to oil it. And I don't want it to be in any bother. And then somebody keeps asking me to show the threading and how the bobbin goes in, so I'm going to do that quickly as well. So I'll just put the top back on. These old machines, sometimes it's hard to realise what to do with them, so that's back on. And so I'm going to thread a bobbin first. I just put the thread through the top. There's a little thing here for the thread to go through. It's easy to go in. And it goes round this little thing here and then into your bobbin. And I keep a hold of that. Put the bobbin on the bobbin holder thing. And I keep hold of this. And then the thing to do is just to unwind the gear mechanism here. So if you keep that going, the needle's going to go up and down. So you undo that. And then once I'm switched on, I should just be able to wind my bobbin. Try not to overfill them either. Off with my bobbin. Thread cut. Turn that back, remember, tighten it up nicely. And I'm ready to put the bobbin in. To do the bobbin, I've got a little finger press here. And then you've got to have your needle right the way up. And then the bobbin comes out on a little handle. And then you can just pop it out. That goes on my holder. And then if you hold your bobbin with your little finger thing out, the thread has to wind away from you. And put the thing down. And then just pull the thread into that little groove there. And just pull it in, and the thread should just wind nicely now. You hold your little handle out and push it in, and it just clicks when it's in the right place. So now I have to thread my machine. I hope this is helpful for the person who wanted to see all this. So machine comes through the top, 1 through the top, 2, goes around the thread tensioner, put my thread holder up, goes through there from the right to the left, back down, and then there's 2 little catches under here that you just put it through. They're just little wire catches, and then you're ready to thread your needle. Needle goes front to back on here. That's it. And just hold the thread while you turn your hand wheel, and that brings the bobbin thread up. And then and we're done. All that's left to do now, I'll close that, and I'm actually going to put the side on, which just slides on. There's a little handle underneath it, supports it, and then I'm ready to sew. So I've still got my pins in. You can still see where I've cut the seam. I've matched up the body at the bottom when I've quartered it, but when I take it to the sleeve, you can see that it doesn't really match up properly, and that's just a matter of it being a vintage tablecloth. They weren't always accurately cut out or embroidered, and it's just something to cope with. I'm going to take a narrow French seam on here. That's why I've done everything with the right side out, and I'm not turning anything anywhere. And I'm just going to start right down here, even though I think I might be making this a narrower sleeve. I'm going to just do my initial sewing right from the sleeve end that I've made. And I'm just going to do 1/4 inch measured by my presser foot. And I've got my stitches on. I'm going to use a large stitch length just in case I need to pull this out. I might not have to, and I'm going to enclose the seam anyway, and I'm just going to set off and sew it. Pins out as I go. And I'm going to do that on the other side too. So at this point, you're ready to turn through to make a French seam but I would suggest trying it on now, which is what I'm going to do, and then you can make any adjustments to the fit. You obviously can't make it any bigger at this point, but you can take it in. So if you feel that you need it a bit smaller, you can run a different sewing line down and then trim your seam back. I'm going to check it now because I want to know what I'm going to do with these sleeves. But after trying it on again, I'm really pleased with the fit of the body. There's a little bit of excess fabric under my arm that I'm not so happy about, and I've actually decided to narrow in the sleeves, and you can see by how much here I flared them out, and actually it would suit being a little bit narrower. So I'm just going to follow my pin line. So here's the shape that I've got coming from the body onto the sleeve, and I'm just going to narrow this sleeve down, and I'm going to sew along here like this, and I'm going to get up to the armpit, and then I'm going to take that armpit a little bit further in and back down onto the body like that. So my body line is going to come a little bit up into the armpit and then narrow down, and I think the sleeves might actually look really nice. I'm going to take that line again and then take it from there. And what I'll do is I'll sew this, trim my seam back, and then I'll match the other side up. So the next thing is to trim this seam back, and I'm actually going to trim the seam allowance back to around about 1/8 of an inch because I want the narrowest French seam I can get away with, because I'm not clipping any curves. I'm really cutting it in tight. So although I sewed at 1/4 of an inch, I'm still trimming this seam back. And now I'll just quarter my blouse again. I'm going to call it a blouse now, not a tablecloth. I'm going to quarter the blouse again and just match up that seam line, draw it on, and do the same adjustment to the other side and trim it back. Just tried it on again and decided to take even more out of the underarm area. So I've just pinned it and sewn it. I can't emphasize enough to just keep trying it on. Remember, you're not using a pattern, you're just trying it and fitting it to your own body, and you just try it on, keep trying it on every time, making small adjustments, which is what I've just done. So I'm trimming this seam back properly to the 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to press it and finish off the French seam. The thing is with me is, because I would have bust darts on here, I always do full bust adjustments, and this really is just a folded cloth that's then fitted in, and there'll be creases and stuff everywhere, which is I'm quite happy with. But I suppose if I wanted to do a more proper thing, I'd set sleeves in properly. But for me, I'm happy, and if you don't have the curvy figure I do, this will work perfectly. My other one works perfectly too. Okay, so I'm now cut back. I'll cut the other one back as well. Put my iron on now and press this seam. I'm just going to pull it open across the ham and give it a press. Especially useful for that underarm bit anyway. Normally you'd be clipping these seams, but it doesn't really make a bother to have the French seam, as long as you make it narrow enough. I'm just going to pull that seam so that I can iron it flat. Back to the sewing, and I'm just going to do another seam by the edge of my presser foot, because I've cut that back to 1/8. So if I do another 1/4 inch seam, it'll enclose those raw edges, and it'll make just something narrow that's not going to be any bother as it goes through the underarm. I will have creases and what have you, but I'm not bothered about that. So now this is my final body seam. So that's my blouse just about finished. I just have to do something with the neckline now. The cut line there is actually not too bad. It just needs finishing off. So I think I'm going to finish that by hand. But if you don't have this type of thing to be cutting round like I did, what I would now do is turn that under with a little rolled hem, and usually I turn it to the outside and then I hand sew it. But you could just run that on the machine. It'll fold over beautifully because it's all on the bias going round, and so it'll stretch in lovely. You just need a little narrow hem like that. But I'm going to finish mine by hand. And once that's done, I'll try it on and show you. So just a bit of hand sewing to go. I'm on my final piece now, which is doing the neckline. Decided to use this bonny blue pearl cotton. It's got a lovely sheen to it, it's very soft. And I've already done the front neck by just going through the crochet part and over the seam that I cut back. You can see that. Just to finish the cut edge off. And now that I'm on the back neck where I've actually got cut fabric, all I'm doing is I'm rolling the edge to the outside and twice and finger pressing that along to make a little rolled hem. And I just go, it's on the bias so it should stretch in, so it's just maybe or like a 1/4 inch turn each time. Finger press it in, and then I come along and use my blanket stitch to sew that down, and then my blanket stitch just comes in right at the fold line, loops behind and pulls through, and it just keeps that edge down, so I'm not even having to hem that edge. I'm just keeping the fold in place with a bit of blanket stitch in a matching cotton. I nearly did it with a variegated thread because I've got some really pretty variegated threads. But in the end I thought this plain blue would work well. And I'm trying to keep the same spacing as I've done along the front. Well, the embroidery's finished, and I went into the crocheting to keep my little edge nice and neat there, and on the back I've folded outwards and just stitched the hem down, just a nice small rolled hem, and I think that looks like a good finish for the blouse. So I'm going to try it on now. Well, here it is, and I'm really pleased with it. I've changed into trousers so you can get the full effect. But I think more normally I wear skirts, so this piece is probably not going to be seen that much, but it actually does look nice over my trousers. I'm very pleased with the sleeves. I think that's the bit that's I'm enjoying the most, because I haven't been able to make one with long sleeves before, and although it doesn't just hang perfectly right, because all I've done is fold and quarter a square tablecloth, they actually do look really lovely and I like it a lot. And so it's something I'm going to be able to wear in these colder months and not just a summer top now. So I'll definitely be looking out for something that's just this sort of a size. I'll measure how big this was and I'll know what size to look for if I need to have a long sleeve top. So all in all, I think it's working well. I don't mind the creases here. It's the sort of shape, all I've done is cut out a shape and sewn it together with a French seam. And so the bit of creasing here, it's what my linen dress, it's the same shape top as that. I've got two dresses that are exactly this shape, but they do have their sleeves sewn on here. So they were a T shape with just the curvy underarms, and then I sewed the sleeves on separately. There's a red dress and also a black linen dress. And they're both this type of a shape. And I really like it and they're really comfortable to wear. So for me, I'm branding this as a total success, and I would encourage you to be doing it for yourselves. Show you the neckline. It's looking good, and there's lovely sleeves. I think this is the bonus detail, this bit, except there is one of them has the stain still on. Not sure which one it is now. That's it. No bust darts, no nothing, just fitting it round your body. So I hope you enjoyed that upcycle of a tablecloth. I really enjoyed doing it, and with the long sleeves, it's really really pleased me no end that I've now got this long sleeve top to wear. And if I can find that mark, I might put one of the pieces on from the bit I cut out from the neckline. But you just have to be brave and just get the middle cut out for your head, and then everything just hangs on that. You just sort of get your head through it, and then you can alter the neckline as you were. I could have made this a lower neckline if I'd wanted to, but not with that crochet on. I had to go with that because of this tablecloth, and in the end you have to work with what you've got, and so your journey with it might involve some different sort of creative process, but that's how I make mine and how I made my other one, and it's the same shape I make my linen dresses, with just a curve going in under the arm. In fact, I don't know why I didn't just bring one of my dresses down and trace it on. I think just because I wanted to show you the process, and so I did it all from scratch again. So thanks for watching. I hope if you've liked that and you've not been here before, you might press the subscribe button for me and give me the thumbs up, because you never know what else I might be up to. I do have some interesting things coming. I've got a feeling that I'm going to be doing some embroidery on the coat next Sunday, so unless something else comes in front, you're likely to see embroidery going on the coat. So if you don't use them on the table anymore, get them out of those drawers, get them out of those cupboards, and make something and wear it proudly, because that's what I'm going to do with this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you like the journey of my tablecloth to a blouse. It only took a couple of hours. See you everyone. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you when you drop by next time.